You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio. Welcome to the Bitter Medicine Podcast, where it's all about Black empowerment. Our show focuses on Black news and entertainment, arts, science, economics, history, people, and strategies that uplift, empower, and motivate Africans within the diaspora. And now, your host, whose favorite color is black, Goku.
Welcome back to the Bitter Medicine Podcast. I got 15 minutes to rant, so here we go. If you're looking at this on YouTube, you'll see that I'm showing some footage from the most recent 5150 episode. If you don't know, 5150, the Corey Holcomb 5150 show is a podcast done by the black comedian Corey Holcomb. At one time, Corey Holcomb, I thought, was like one of the top, I want to say one of the top, definitely top 5 comedians in America. When we had the void of Dave Chappelle leaving his show and going off to Africa and all that old stuff, right? At the time, Chris Rock wasn't putting anything out. To me, Corey Holcomb was the guy. And if you go back a little further, you know about Patrice O'Neal. You know, Patrice O'Neal seemed that he was going to be the guy, but then he unfortunately passed away. So it looked like Corey Holcomb was about to take it over. If you go back a few years back, you remember Corey Holcomb did that Shaq All-Star thing, and he killed it. It's still one of my favorite things to kind of tune into on YouTube. So naturally, as a fan, a couple years back, I started following Corey Holcomb's 5150 podcast. Loved it in the beginning. In the beginning, Corey Holcomb, the show was funny. Everyone on it brought something to the table, brought some interesting type of character to the show. And the show was great. And then, unfortunately, the show started to slump to me because there was no growth to the show. That's the thing about your entertainment. And if it's going to be entertaining, then it should grow. It should become, if it's a funny show, it should become funnier. If it's a mystery show, it should become more mysterious, right? That's how it becomes engrossing. That's how you pull people and keep the people that you have. The Corey Holcomb show began to become not funny during the Obama years, right? Every week it was who's a fag and this, that, and the other. And that's, maybe 1 week you could take it, 2 weeks, okay. But when that becomes the running thing, and then you're talking about who in Hollywood, like them boys and all that kind of stuff like that, it's not creative anymore. And you could go back and look at the comments, and this was back when Corey Holcomb was on Ustream, just before he came onto YouTube. Go back and look at the comments. There's some weeks where people are like, man, this show is just done. The show's just gone down. And then most of you will probably know about the infamous fight that happened on the show with Aries Spears and Zoe Williams. And ever since about that time, the show is very hit or miss, especially since that time. And it's become clear that Corey, for whatever reason, I believe the reason is, or one of the reasons are, that Corey has become cognizant of his age, cognizant of where he stands in the industry. I think Corey is looking at some of the young guys he's had around him in recent years, the younger guys, right? And I think Corey is a little bit bothered, by it. Some will call him a bitter, angry comic. right? But on his show in particular, which used to be such a great, hour or two just laughing about bullshit, it just went down, to nothing. And now it reached a head where one of his, seemingly one of his friends, definitely one of his regulars, Zoe Williams from the Voice of Reason, the Zoe What Show, him and Zoe got into it. In recent weeks, Corey has been beefing with another comedian he had on the show who's to stop by, a guy named Grady. As you know, Ice-T's ex, Darlene Ortiz, is on the show, and actually the argument that happened in the most recent episode started with her, really. And then it became a heavy hitter with Zoe Williams. And if you look on the screen, you could see Zoe in that part of the show where he's airing out his grievances. Corey Holcomb has this thing, he likes to air out people. He also likes to talk big macho talk. When I see this one, it's on site. He said it about Stephen A. Smith. And when he saw Stephen A. Smith, he ended up taking a picture with Stephen A. Smith with a big, goofy, coon grin and a piece of chicken in his hand. And, not to go over all of what Zoe was talking about, but what Zoe was essentially honing in on, and Zoe started to say this last week, actually, is you're not a stand-up dude. You're not a man of your word. If you say it's on site when you see so and such, Charles Barkley, Stephen A. Smith, no one is really saying you must fight these people. But if you say that you have, certain words for them when you see them, we expect you to play out those words. If not, stop all the talking. You feel me? And that's the thing, people. We gotta stop all this silly talk with no action to back it up. We have to stand on our word. And my rant tonight is really the lessons that we learned from the 5150 show. And I see a parallel with these lessons from a movie that I've always liked. I haven't seen it in a while now. When I was young, I used to watch it with some frequency. But the show is Scarface. If you remember the movie Scarface, where this white guy was playing a Cuban. I forget the fella's name now. Anyway, in that it shows this kind of rags to riches via the drug trade, right, of this Cuban immigrant, right? And as he starts to get the fame, he's doing some of the coke himself. He shitted on his best friend, the guy who was there with him and helped him reach to the high, to the pinnacle of the trade, and he got rid of that guy. I don't want to spoil it in case y'all didn't have time over the last 35 years to see the shit, right? And in the end, he gets got, and he has no one around him when he gets got. And there's a couple of things you could learn from that. You have to know when to hold them and know when to fold them. Know when to cut ties, right? And know when you have surrounded yourself with the right people, right? So in the case of Corey Holcomb, right, and the similarities I see in the messages, the first thing that we see from the Zoe Corey Holcomb beef is, and particularly this focuses on Corey Holcomb, right? There's the idea that you shouldn't, you must know when to cut ties. Corey Holcomb clearly doesn't understand that you don't burn bridges unless it's necessary. If you have a business relationship with someone that's heading to the shitter, don't cling to it forever. You have to know when to cut your losses. There comes a time when you have to end relationships, business or otherwise. And if you remember, at the beginning of this year, we talked about things that we really want to see our people working on this year and years to come. Your relationships, your health, and your wealth. If someone, so in this case, we're talking about relationships. If someone crosses you, cut the cord. If there's a better opportunity elsewhere, then go for it. If the current business partner is not willing to compensate you for breaking your back for them or what have you, right? Be done with it. If you're Corey Holcomb and you don't like the people around you on the show, just get rid of them. Just and do it in a way where it's not messy. It's not full of beef and just messy like it's been, the last few years, right? Also, Corey Holcomb needs to understand. You gotta understand number one, to surround yourself with the right people, and when you surrounded yourself with the right people, right? Look, I know Corey worked hard to be who he is and to have the recognition, the name recognition that he has. But some of those people over the years that you're shitting on were people who helped you along the way. You got to understand, these people are in your corner. Don't cross up. Don't make public spectacles of them or something they did. Right? By doing what Corey's been doing the last couple of weeks, he's showing himself not to be a stand-up dude and really not to be a friend. Corey Holcomb has that kind of cutthroat mentality. And I ain't talking about the good cutthroat mentality. And a lot of our people watch these guys like Corey Holcomb and they nod in agreement and they emulate what they see. And this is not what we need our people to be looking at. This is not what we need our people to be emulating. We need more positivity in our relationships. If a guy is not good for you, get rid of him quietly. You don't have to make a scene. This is not a good look for Corey Holcomb, and this is not a good spectacle for especially our young people to be observing. And 5150 Nation people need to condemn the foolishness. It's a toxic character trait. A couple of weeks ago, and I knew this thing with Zoe was going to come to a head because of the Ari Spears fight, and Ari Spears sued or something like that. Corey Holcomb had to pay about $20,000 to some lawyers, and Corey Holcomb has brought that shit up with some frequency. With Zoe on the show. Zoe's a man too. I know if I was sitting there and a man has to name drop and keep bringing up this fight and a name drop or whatever, the fact that he had to spend $20K on it, that's gonna bother me in my soul. If you agree with me, say you too in the comment section. I also know what's coming to a head because Corey had a woman on his show named Sarah who was behind the scenes running the cameras and all that type of stuff. And Corey laid that lady out on air to the point you could hear her crying in the background. And she stopped fucking with him after that. He had to get a new crew of guys. And what's funny is, like, he brought in a new kid when that when that lady Sarah was there, right? And then he got on Sarah just out the blue one night, right? Got her out the paint, but he knew that he had the kid. It's either one or two kids, but he knew he had these two young brothers there to take her place. It's messy type stuff. You could have got that woman out of there without doing that shit on the air. But again, why would a guy like Corey do this stuff too? He also knows what the audience likes. And unfortunately, our people like messy shit. They like beef. They like drama. And we got to get out of this too. And really, like a guy like Corey Holcomb them should understand this a little bit better and stop this type of bullshit, you know, portraying this stuff for all to see. But that lady Sarah, who he got rid of and you know, kind of ridiculed and all that on the air, you know, thankfully she was behind the scenes and never in front of the camera, right? But she also works for Zoe. She does the same thing for Zoe that she was doing for Corey, hitting the switches and running the live streams and all that type of stuff. Zoe wasn't there the night that it happened. And I know this sounds like a soap opera I'm talking about, but I'm just trying to show you guys how these actions are so destructive, right? And it's not, we're not focusing on it because it's a so-called celebrity doing it. I'm focused on it because it's the things that we end up doing as people in our own community all the time, off camera. That lady also works for Zoe. And I know Zoe couldn't feel too good about that. Now, Zoe said in last night's show, he brought all those people to work the switches and stuff for Corey's show. So he has a relationship with this lady of some kind, maybe their family or something like that. And to do what he did on the air was pretty horrific. I cringed. You tune into the 5150 show to laugh for about maybe 2 hours, and there was no laughter. And frankly, for the last few months, there's very little laughter on the show. The other thing, the other lesson Corey needs to learn is that you got to know when to stop. You don't want to get too deep into anything that you lose all your friends and those closest to you. This recent argument with Zoe actually started with Darlene. And like I said, Darlene is Ice-T's ex-woman, right? It started with her. And then kind of sort of to me, like Zoe kind of stepped in and like called Corey out on some shit. You can't be talking shit about other people, not standing on stuff or being a stand-up individual when you aren't. And that's how it became a Zoe Corey thing. But a guy like Corey needs to understand, and we all need to understand, man, there's a time you gotta just stop. You can't mess up these relationships around you, be it friend, lover, you know, even spouses, right? The people close to you. Look, I have a friend who has a saying, man, there's like, you know, there's like, to be conservative, there's like 7 billion people on the planet. You may have, as an individual, you guys listening right now, you may have about 7 solid people around you out of 7 friggin' billion people. Again, using conservative numbers, right? You may have 7 solid people around you. Why would you get so heavy into something? You and them, by the way, why would you all get so heavy into something that there's no turning back from it, right? And these are supposed to be the closest people around you. There's a line that needs to be teetered. If things ain't going well, you'll always want those closest to provide you with support and motivation. Why you beefing with them? Why you messy? You gotta know when to quit. You know, you gotta know when to quit. And so that display that occurred on the 5150 show, to me, is a disgrace. But it's also a disgrace of who we are as a community and as a people. I look around me all the time and I see the same type of beefing all the time in families and relationships. I'm talking like romantic relationships, like husbands and wives and you know. And so you end up out here in the world, we end up out here in the world as loners. And there's no need to be out here a loner. Anyway, that's the lessons I took from the 5150 show. Those are the lessons I took from the 5150 show, the recent episode with Zoe versus Corey. I hope Corey figures out his issue, just like I hope the Corys, quote unquote, in the community figure out their issues, what it is that's personally rotten, so to speak, within them. And I hope these Corys out here fix it. If you guys are fans of the 5150 show, let me know your thoughts on what went down and what I had to say about it. I thought it was a disgrace. Zoe is one of the strongest dudes on that show, as the voice of reason, as the intellectual on the show. And there's one point Corey says he's the, Zoe's the weakest link on the show. You guys check it out. I'll put the link down in the description. But what happened there is something that is symptomatic of our community, and we need to fix it. And it's simple. It's real simple. Nip stuff in the bud early. Don't lose the closest people around you, the people in your corner. One of the 7 or so people, who are for you, so to speak. And keep your eye on the bottom line. All right? Keep your eye on the bottom line. All right? Keep things positive and pushing. All right? This has been my rant. Hope you guys are well. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast with your host, Koku. If you like what you just heard, we hope you pass along our web address, bittermedicineblogs.com, to your friends and colleagues, and share our show to all your social media. Be sure to check out our archive section on our website for previous podcasts. This has been a KWAZ radio production. Join us next time for another session of the Bitter Medicine Podcast. Follow us on Facebook at Bitter Medicine Show, Twitter, Bitter Meds, Tumblr, Bitter Meds, Instagram, Bitter Medicine.